Welcome back to the Cousin Caesar Show on another Wednesday, which means I'm with another comic creator. And this week I have another special guest. His name is TJ Sterling. He is obviously an artist, but also he is running basically a comic distribution or a publisher called RAE Comics. And I got him here for the show today. How you doing today, TJ?
Hey, Mike, I'm good, man. I am absolutely honored and happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. Again, I'm TJ Sterling, president lead artist of REA Comics.
Yes. You guys have a Kickstarter going on right now, which we'll get into. Joystick Angels.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna take a step back, and of course, I wanted you to come on and obviously tell a little bit about yourself, and also make sure I don't mess up this name. Tell us more about obviously RAA, which is Red Arcus Entertainment.
Yeah, you could just say REA Comics, make it simple.
Well, I thought it was interesting because I obviously looked through you guys and I was like, huh. And it shows in the About Us all the whole spiel. I'm like, oh, that's pretty neat.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, REA Comics is a publishing imprint where we focus on telling unique stories about underrepresented characters and just, unique situations. The goal really is to tell cool stories that are just, off the wall, different and unique, and just really kind of out there. And we just push the envelope as much as possible with the stories that we tell.
Yeah, no, and you guys, for also listeners to hear, they also have one series already down in under their belt right now is Okemos. That was
Yes.
You were fortunate enough to give me the first issue 0, and it was I liked it. It was pretty interesting. It's definitely in the more the just the martial arts side of the comics, and no, I really dig it. And I think it was a really cool setup, and made me want to look into the other issues. So yeah,
Music to my ears.
So what got you in? Let's hear your background. So how'd you get into the whole field, and obviously got into how RAE opened up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I mean, I've been an avid comic book collector and fan my entire life. I mean, I started collecting in the late 80s. And I just was always a fan of the art and the stories. And it was something that I think really took shape in the early 90s when I started to see, the Jim Lees and the Todd McFarlanes and, these really amazing cutting edge artists doing their own thing. And I was really, really inspired by that independence and that, just that style of art to me was just so next level that for me, I just was inspired and I wanted to draw comics. So, I mean, I just stayed within the art world over, the years growing up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and, went to, art classes, during the summertime, and majored in art and illustration in college, and eventually got my internship working with Marvel for about a year as a production intern, which was absolutely incredible. And shortly after that, well, about 5 years after I finished my internship at Marvel, I started my own comic book company, and that's REA Comics. And really, my favorite genre growing up was the Sentai genre, the VR Troopers, the Beetleborgs, the, Ultraman sixes of that genre was my favorite. So I wanted to do an American style comic book focused in that vein with martial arts, but also spliced a little bit with Eastern mythology and, a little bit of Dragon Ball Z in there. So kind of mixing lots of different genres and elements into one comic book. And that's really how our flagship title, Okemos, was born. And I've been going to conventions for the past, 5+ years selling Okemos and, building other properties behind the scenes. And, fast forward to today, this, last month, we debuted the Kickstarter campaign for our second title from REA Comics, Joystick Angels.
Yeah. And then I'm more give you on here, obviously, congratulations. At least it's funded, but obviously we're doing it on stretch goals. So that's always great to hear. And through the other interviews I've done, it's really awesome to hear that Kickstarter is definitely the place to be for if you're getting into comics, because also there's such a great community there that pushes for these smaller titles to get actually funded. I've heard a lot more success stories than I've heard bad ones. Of course, there's bad ones, but you know what I mean? Yes, I'm glad to hear there's a good community there in Kickstarter. What would you can you give us a little because I saw that I see that you did an internship with Marvel. What is that infamous what is it, the pool that they do in Marvel that you're talking about?
Bullpen, is that
Yeah,
what you're talking about?
the bullpen, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean the bullpen goes back to the I think it goes back to like the 70s when you'd have a room full of editors, pencilers, inkers, artists, writers, and they were all there kind of like in this think tank type of situation where they were coming up with stories and arcs and different directions to take certain books. And a lot of that essence still exists today. When I was there, all of the artists basically were working from home. Most of the freelancers were, with the exception of a couple of old school inkers like Pond Scum who worked in the building. But most of the editors, the production staff, the writers, some of those people were in the building pretty regularly. And that's what the bullpen was all about. So I got a chance to really do a lot of cool stuff with the production side of things. And that's really kind of where I learned how to assemble a comic book and how to run that business, on the back end, which is just as important as drawing and writing.
Okay, that's good. No, gets me. I've heard the infamous bullpen, even though I said pool, but yeah, the bullpen, and then of course, just more to hear what it's about, like the idea that you've been out there we're in the whole zone of it too. That's really cool to hear. And then I'm also more because I've obviously did a little bit of background on you. I see now. I understand. I know that Motor City Comic Con is big, but I see why, because you grew up in Michigan. So I'm like, all right, Michigan represent, because obviously coming out of Davison, so I'm like close to Flint. So
oh, nice. Yeah, I just my friend from Flint was just visiting here yesterday in my house. So I mean, I absolutely love Michigan. I love the cons there. I love the people. And again, the artistic city that I grew up in, Grand Rapids, was a huge engine for creativity. There were so many people that love anime, that love comics, that love games, and just being in that space during that time as a kid really just fueled my interest in comics and the arts. So I'm just super grateful to be from that area.
I think it also goes into one of your guys' on Joystick Angels stretch goals, because you have your brother coming in for music to do like original soundtrack for it. Because it sounds crazy how I'm saying that, because there was a video game that just came out called Aerial Knights, and they had a whole like original soundtrack that actually blew it up better than even how the game did. You know what I'm saying? And they're from Detroit, so the idea, I think, music is really into Michigan's background. That's kind of more surprising, because I think it's really cool that you did that same idea. Because what brought your brother in for Joystick Angels compared to Okemos?
It's a great question, man. I mean, again, Okemos it didn't feel like it was necessary to have a soundtrack. I mean, some of my fans have done original music for me and sent it to me and stuff like that. And we are planning on doing something eventually. But Joystick Angels was very much an intentional decision, because me and my brother were co-writing the book. So it's, a joint voice between the two of us. And we're kind of, Joystick Angels was created and inspired by all those 80s and 90s video games, like the Star Foxes and the Gradius and the Darius Twins, those types of things where you had these amazing games that had great soundtracks. And you can't really have an amazing game or an amazing story like the ones that they had in those games without a soundtrack. So to us, it just kind of felt like it made the most sense. Like, you got to have the soundtrack with it. And my brother has composed 8 instrumental, amazing tracks for these characters in the story, plus some other entities. And like I said, it just made sense. And we're offering physical CDs to people, which people are really excited about, because now it's a novelty item.
Yeah.
Who knew CDs, a decade ago, were normal. You could buy them anywhere. And now they're a novelty item because they don't make them anymore. So it's interesting.
No, it's real cool, because that's why I'm like, I looked through you guys' Kickstarter. I'm like, God dang, they're doing a whole CD, and then obviously bring a soundtrack in for a comic book. And that's really cool. And the idea of it just shows those little special things that are only on that Kickstarter. website, which is really cool to hear. And then,
That's right.
yeah. And here's my one kind of like the show Hot Ones question, because I was looking through your Instagram. What's with you and Aaliyah, my friend? I saw
Oh,
a lot of
well,
Aaliyah.
I mean,
I saw,
I happen to be a big fan of her music, and she's a Michigan-born creative who I thought was very edgy and unique, and just yeah, man. I mean, I like talent that is not oversaturated or overdone. I think artists like her, and there's many artists like
yeah,
her that just had such a truly unique and creative voice, and that's kind of what I aspire to with everything that I do. Like, how do I make my voice as creative as I can through my writing, through my drawing, and through the properties that I'm releasing? So yeah, like I said, I like to celebrate good art, great artists anytime I can.
no, because I meant that in the all respect I can, because no, I was like watching, I'm like looking, oh, yeah, that's cool art. And then like, oh, look, a drawing of Aaliyah. And then a couple more things. Oh, he's at a Comic Con, then more Aaliyah. I'm like, oh, wow, like there has to be a story to this more than just obviously, yeah, just being respect. I know that she's from Detroit, and I thought it was kind of funny that RAE kind of is now out of New York. So I was like, you guys are going down like the whole idea of like how Aaliyah has been really big into New York rappers, well, DMX's old life and stuff. So I was like, huh. Just was wondering if there's a more bigger story to that.
I wish there was a cool story like I ran into her when I was out here or something, but I mean that was definitely not the case. I mean, I moved to the New York area, in 2001, just a few months after September 11th, and after a few months after she died in a plane crash. So you know, but again, I think anybody from the really anybody in different parts of the country used to come to New York for various things, and a lot of times it was music or it was art or it was fashion. People came to New York for a reason to take their career to the next level. And I came here for school and for career stuff. And that's really what that whole thing was like. So I guess the journey kind of parallels itself on that end.
Right. No, of course. And then you're in that generation of also, because well, duh, Marvel and I think even DC they both are coming out of New York. They used to, like, for
They
writing.
were, I mean, DC's whole publishing imprint was out of New York and moved to California just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Marvel's still growing strong out here, but Marvel moved their film division. Marvel Studios is in Manhattan Beach, California. So I mean, that you go where the industry is for whatever it is that you're planning on doing.
Of course. All right. And then we'll get in now. Let's get into some more of the Joystick Angels. So of course you said it was from your growing up with arcades, and also just kind of like a dream mission with your brother, like of course in the story wise. What are some things that how about this? Yeah, what's your top 5 shooter game, like space shooters that you would take on a island if you had to
I
choose?
mean, well, I mean, I guess I would just say, again, definitely Gradius, Darius Twin, Star Fox. I think there's one called, I think it might be Galaga, Galaga. I can't remember the name of it, but it starts with a G, and it's only available in an arcade form. Those are my top 4. I don't have a fifth one,
Did you
but
ever
yeah.
get into R Type or anything, or uh,
I do remember Archetype and I liked it, but I never got into it as much because, again, I was like this huge Star Fox fan. So I followed the entire Star Fox franchise, for years afterwards because I just love the characters. I love the design. I loved everything about it. So, and again, you're going to see a lot of that influence in Joystick Angels when it comes to like something like Star Fox.
yeah, and like without just because of the art, you can see also like there's a panda girl or something and all that stuff, and it looks really cool. And then I do have to more congratulate, because it's really, I really like your guys' art style. It has a really great like obviously the pencil, of course, but then also just the coloring has like a really good like pop in. It just looks so good in the sense of like a not even just video game, but it has like that really good anime like richness to the coloring. I really enjoyed. It looks really good. I just more give you a
Thank you.
appreciation for
Thank
that.
you.
And then what is your guys's what's the future of RAE? Like what's the end goal of like we're gonna be like this? We're going to start collecting maybe other people's IP and bringing them aboard. What's the plan?
The plan for REA Comics is to just continue to make great stories, honestly. Um, before Spider-Man had, his first animated show or TV show or movie, he had 30 years of content behind him.
Yeah.
And, so did the other various Marvel and DC properties. They had, I mean, when Superman came out in like the 70s, I think the one with Christopher Reeves, he had over 50 years of content, like, behind him. I mean, that's a big deal when you have a library of great content that you can pull stories from. I mean, every single DC movie or Marvel movie is pulled from comic book stories. I mean, they're not just fleshed out of nowhere. So I think there's something to be said about just continuing to make great content. And as the chips fall and as things happen, more opportunities avail themselves, like games and movies and TV, you take them when it's right. And I think, someone who does it really, really well is someone like Robert Kirkman.
Yeah.
He spent years building Invincible to be this, incredibly huge, fan driven book that people loved and people wanted to see. And then, once it was done, he moved on to something else and then gets this Netflix deal and reinvents Invincible for the modern era again. It was already a modern era comic book, but he reinvented it again the right way. So, you just have to do things correctly. And I think we're not trying to outpace ourselves. We're just trying to grow organically and grow the right way.
So it's all just of course, I'm not saying like to the end, never say never, but so the plan is obviously just more like self-chosen works of comic books, like your own writing, nothing like looking for maybe like if like someone came up and said, I do have an idea, but of course I don't know how to publish it. Like you wouldn't like say, yeah, we can be your publisher and all that stuff. Kind of like a Scout or a Mad Cave and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've entertained the idea of being having creator-owned titles because I mean, I do get approached a lot with people with ideas and wanting to put their IP through an engine that they can really relate to. And again, REA Comics is about the fans and about making content for you guys because we love you. We can't exist without you. So that's the reason why we do what we do. And we put the fans first and not money first. So people want to get on board with that. And I'm very, very grateful every time I get that request. But we're currently not doing creator owned stuff in terms of other people's IPs. Everything that comes through REA Comics right now is either something I've personally written or something that I've co-written with another author. So right now we're doing all of REA Comics IPs or we're doing, collaborative projects. And that's pretty much what we're sticking with at the moment.
Just making sure, you said Robert Kirkman, and I know that he runs the Skybound part of, like he gets to do that with Image. So I didn't know like if you got some pans already on the fire or anything thinking about that'd be because I think you guys are doing a pretty cool thing. I mean, for the little bit that it was kind of odd, you guys just start following me and follow you, and I'm also just more I get into like digging deep into people. So it's really cool to see you guys do that. And then how about even you? Let's say are you so because that's also another question I have also because I've seen it through other creators. Do you have any, if you had the keys to any IP, what would who would you like to write about? Like what character could you, if you could have like the license for one good arc, don't have to be just one book, get you 6 issues.
I mean, I'm an absolute, like one of my absolute favorite comic book characters is Swamp Thing. And personally, I think like he's one of those characters that's had some of the best writers and some of the best artists on, but never really gets as much exposure as someone like a Batman or a Superman. And I've always loved Swamp Thing. I've always wanted to write that character or draw it, one of the two. And maybe one day. But yeah, that's probably one of my all-time favorites.
That'd be really cool because also I've come to terms Swamp Thing is definitely like you are a real comic fan if you pick Swamp Thing.
Correct.
Because I like Swamp Thing, but also it wasn't like what opened the door to comics for me. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, who's this green guy? I'm like, okay, then gets pretty cool. I think that's really I think it's a really noticeable pinpoint somebody does. Like, oh, you're a comic fan? If they say Swamp Thing, I give you credentials. All right, I believe you.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, he's one of the few characters that's been able to beat some of the top guys in certain stories. But again, like his, the philosophical, creative brain behind some of the writing of Swamp Thing is really incredible. And if people really want to treat, to something, just that challenges your way of thinking. I mean, read the Alan Moore Swamp Thing arc, which is, I think it spans 5 or 6 volumes. I think six or maybe over six, but I mean, it's a really incredible series. My brother's reading it right now, actually, because it's something I recommended to him. But yeah, there's way more other characters because to me, I liked Superman's powers, but I was never like a Superman fan. Like, I mean, the whole Boy Scout thing never really been my bag. Captain America, not really. I'm more of a fan of the Captain America movie character than I am the actual comic character. So things like that, real interesting, unique, multifaceted characters.
Right. How you just said, is this your brother's? Is Joystick Angels your brother's like first time in the comic spectrum?
Yeah, it's the first time he's ever written a comic book, and obviously he was following my lead since I do this all the time.
Yeah.
But it's his authentic voice in the story, which is really kind of cool. It's two voices in this story. And again, he gets to create a soundtrack based on these characters. And so he really needed to take his brain and put it into the space of what this character thinks, what this character feels. And then it creates this like multi-sensory experience where you'll be able to read and listen to a soundtrack at the same time, and then also feel who these characters are and get to know them a little bit more, which is really kind of the most awesome part about the entire project itself.
Right. And well, yeah, I can't wait to come out. And also, let's just more touch base with the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is funding how many? Just one book, or is it the first two books?
Well, issue one is already done. So, I mean, again, we pride ourselves at REA Comics in terms of funding pretty much all of our IPs first, and then asking for assistance in terms of printing and taking it to the next level. Okay. And that's what we did with the last Okemos Kickstarter. So issue one is already done. All we need to do is basically get it printed. And then we're trying to raise as much funds as we can. We're trying to reach 20K within, the next week and a half, so to speak, to fund issue two, so we can give everyone issue two for free. That's the goal.
Okay, so that's even better for me to understand. So, because we're trying to tiptoe around. This comes out Wednesday, so about roughly 10 days left, and you guys are in. You're close. You guys are close to the stretch goal, I believe. Because last time I checked, I think you guys like around 15. You're like 5 away from doing that, and then for sure 20. Get the issue 2 going. That's good to hear. So yeah, Joystick Angels. I guess also that's what is there an elevator pitch you could say about the story that's going to happen in the 1 and into 2, like as in like that, not just like, oh yeah, think about the genre, but yeah, can you give us like that elevator pitch, maybe a little teaser what the story is bringing?
Yeah, absolutely. So Joystick Angels is a sci-fi YA space opera comic series centered around 5 young space pilots who are tasked with a very, very crazy mission, and that's to basically save the universe from an evil alien empire. Now, this particular alien empire is parasitic in nature and hive-minded, and it goes from planet to planet, absorbing resources, absorbing life forms, incorporating it into their horde, and then moving on. So they're like the ultimate virus, they're the ultimate parasite, and they're the ultimate villain that all of humanity has to rally against, so to speak. Now, in this particular story, Earth has been destroyed. There's no more Earth. All of the humans live on a space colony called the Libor Space Station. And they've united in a military effort to stop these aliens. But the way it works is that the angels, these 5 kids, are on a space squadron of fighter pilots. And there's multiple other squadrons of space pilots just like them. And they all have to compete in this tournament called the Quantum Elite Space Tournament. And it happens every 10 years. And that basically gives the officials in the Libor government, these are the people who can lead the charge and lead us to safety and, save the universe. So it's a huge honor. It's very much like in the, Star Wars Rebel type of, vein, and there's Star Trek references in there. So I mean, you're going to get that really cool space opera feel that you've gotten with those other IPs. So it's just a real fun story, and I know you guys are going to love it.
No, that gives me a better description on it. It sounds really cool. Sounds, of course, like you said, it's a tag team, a ragtag team of like, Star Fox style. Of course, they're kids, so I get like when you're describing it and also seeing the characters, I think of like, My Hero Academia vibes of like the type of like kids are learning to become the leaders of the the colony. So it's really cool. And of course, that's thanks for coming on, man. And then yeah, why don't you also then tell everybody where they can follow you and all that fun jazz. And of course, in the description of the show, I'll have the Kickstarter and of course how to follow you and all that jazz also. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, appreciate it, Mike. Yeah, super easy to find me, guys. I'm at REA Comics, RAE Comics on IG, on Twitter, and my website is raecomics.com, raecomics.com. I respond very quickly if you have any questions. I'm on Facebook if you Google my name. Super easy to find. And of course, the Kickstarter. If you go to kickstarter.com and you search Joystick Angels, the project will come right up. I encourage you guys to donate. Help us get to 20K so we can give you issue 1 and issue 2 and a whole bunch of other great stuff.
Yes. Like he said, it sounds like a pretty cool project. Of course, they just need a couple more stretches to get to issue 2 on this same project backing of Kickstarter. So yes, go over there, give them some support. It sounds like it's going to be a really fun ride in the book. But yeah, again, thank you much, TJ with REA Comics. And then, of course, like we say every week, be good to each other. And we'll see you guys next week. All right. And peace. Hey. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm more just fucking with you. But yeah, I'm here because I'm going to do something also kind of special because I was teasing it on the regular show, but obviously, just as you can hear from this show, the recording actually happened. RAE Comics, really cool dude, and all that stuff. Hey, like I said, go to his Kickstarter, pledge. It sounds like it's a pretty good deal in a sense. And also after this recording, I actually did go do it. So I actually am part of the crew. So you and I can all have issue 1 of Joystick Angels, and if we get up to 20,000, like you said, you'll be up for issue 2. But I wanted more because we are about to actually have history in an auction on between June 17th and June 19th is the start of this auction. This auction is going to go for a couple months because of what I'm going to talk about. One thing I love to learn is also about other collectors and stuff about this whole comic book stuff. And that's why I think it's a special time. And also, coincidentally, I'm recording this on Memorial Day night. And the newest Pedigree comic collection has been announced. Well, a couple of days ago, or earlier this May, it was announced, but it's going up for auction. The newest Pedigree comic collection is called the Promise Collection. And let's take a step back and let me explain what a Pedigree comic collection is. A Pedigree comic collection is a CGC recognized collection of books. And usually these comic books are ones that are at least, I'm going to give myself a leeway of being correct, like a 1960, but I think it's actually 1950. 1960 or older comic collection that is by one owner. So it's not like a I got it from this guy. It's like all these collections have a story because it comes from it's like a grandfather, so a generation after generation was holding on to these books and then have been brought to the CGC to be recognized. They get their own special label, like this nice, crisp looking black and gold Pedigree like it says, it tells you it's from the Promise collection, all this stuff. And also before, like again, the newest, there's only been the Promise collection just was declared, and that is the 61st collection of these that's ever been officially recognized. And let's take a step back and for a more of a rationality of what I'm talking about. This is a quick synopsis from the first ever pedigree collection, which is code name. Basically, it's Edgar Church, aka the Mile High Collection. It was the earliest pedigree collection ever found. It turned up in Kansas City in the late 1960s. So, like, that's when the first one was founded. And I think it took a little bit for them to recognize it, and featured a large accumulation of nearly 250 high-grade number one issues that ran from 1937 through the 40s. The people who purchased it sold only a handful of issues each year, but because the accumulation was not considered a pedigree until the 80s, and because they have no distinct markings, many copies have anonymously vanished into collections. Besides copies of Batman 1, Flash 1, Green Lantern 1, Planet 1, Jumbo 1, and Superman 1. The collection also contained one of only 4 pedigree copies of Action Comics number 1. That copy graded at 8.0 and was the first comic book to sell at $1 million in 2011. So like I said, these are golden age collections being recognized from the CGC to graded, and obviously the one that we're talking about, the Promise one, is going up for auction at the middle of June. But just more of a retrospect also so that was like 250. Here is the last before the Promise one, the 60th pedigree collection was founded in 1999. So this is why I'm saying this is like history going to happen on June 17th of this collection. But there's even more to that too, because like Promise is also adding more to this thing once we get there. But here's about the Chinatown. Unearthed from the Chinatown area of Vancouver by Patrick Shaughnessy in 1999. This collection is a historical representation of American comic books available to Canadians during the 40s and 50s. The collection totaled over 1,300 comic books and included many sought-after titles from DC, Timely, Nador, Fiction House, Quality, and Dell. The owner was of Chinese origin who worked as a cook on the Canadian Pacific Ferry, picking up his comic books at a local shop in Vancouver to improve his English comprehension skills. Most copies exhibit either a handwritten mark or stamp in Chinese. Nearly a third are currently the highest grade copies of the CGC census. The census is basically when you go on the website. So like you're like, hey, I want to get a book graded, and then it tells you how many of that grade is out there. It kind of explains itself. With more than 250 copies grading at 9.4 or higher, and over 80% receiving off-white or white pages. So that discussion, because that gets into this Promise one, off-white and white. So think about it. Some of these pedigrees are, of course, they get as you heard, like the first one kind of like 8.0s, but the longer we go, some of them magically get these weirder ways to hold them. Some of them are just plastic bags. Some find like probably the first ever like Ziplocs. They didn't have bag and boards like we do now, but the idea of getting these such quality comics at to still have white pages is still phenomenal, because you think that's okay, 50s, and we'll even go that from the 40s. So 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 2010, 2020. That is 80 years of history, and being able to still be able to hold. So back when it was 60 years for that, because it was 1999. But the idea, 60 years of keeping its standards up to the white page is phenomenal. So that means that was really good storage, no sunlight, no sunlight, or just, you know what I mean? I didn't really get into those informations about those stories in particular, because to be more surprised those ones were found in 99 at the latest. The Promise collection that was found is actually going to blow these ones out the water. And actually, I have the story for for the Promise collection. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So I'm just going to give you like a little story time about it. And right now, the owners of the Promise collection want to stay anonymous. So these are obviously names that protect the blah, blah, blah. But these are some of the information that came from Heritage Auctions, the ones who are running the auction at the middle of June. But it's a really cool story, I think. In the early 1950s, a young man called Robert was drafted by the Army to fight in Korea. His younger brother, known as Junie, enlisted in hopes of keeping a watch over Robert. Kind of sounds like a movie. Junie had but one request to his big brother, that Robert take care of his collection of funny books, should anything happen to him in battle. Robert knew how dear those books were to his brother, so he promised him, yes, of course, he would take care of those funny books, if something happened. God forbid. Then, Junie was killed in action. He was 21 years old. Robert came home from the war and fulfilled his promise to his brother. The comic books were carefully boxed up and put in an attic, where they stayed for over half a century. When their names become known, the collecting community remembered the original fans who have passed their collections down through the decades to be appreciated in modern day. Basically, then also like they give people readers, collectors such as Edgar Church, who Edgar Church also, like we said, is a part of the Mile High one. He's also been part of other pedigrees, but just stick with me because I want to find also like the Promise collection becomes the 61st pedigree collection recognized by the CGC. And the idea that I'm trying to get to is this collection, because now the rules have been also altered about like collections. So maybe I read something there, a little quick synopsis, but this Promise collection has over 5,000 Golden Age comics. And the crazier part is 95 of them are still at a blistering high grade. Is the tale of the young, it's just crazy. So let's give a point, more of an example. So we are one of the ones that they have finally got to grade, because they're not done grading all of them, where is it? They have Captain America issue, where is it? 74. And in the census, I believe the census, hold on 1 second. Okay, I just want to double check before I say anything. So, this Captain America 74, I know I'm talking audio, so I'm not really showing you it, but if you guys look up at the Golden Age, so this is legit Captain America 74. This is one of the first covers in the run that has this, because I even looked them up. This one and then the next one after it are the only ones in this Captain America run that they switched the title to basically be like in smaller letters, Captain America, and then try to sell it by saying Weird Tales. It's a very phenomenal looking cover. It has like a more like a giant, like Grim Reaper looking red skull with giant bony, scary hands, and like has Captain America and Bucky look like they're in agony and stuff, but it's just more to look horrid. It was apparently, through the research I found, like it was during the time where superhero books were going okay, but horror books were really sprouting and popping, like it was being real hot. So the idea of, in the Promise Collection's Weird Tales, Captain America 74, is a 9.2. and I want you to think about that. A 9.2. The closest version of this book that's on the census, so the one that they know about and recognized, the closest one grade to it is an 8.0. So that is a huge jump of time. And then give you another perspective. In 2019, a 7.5 version of this same book sold for $27,000. So do some math. This book is going to hit this is one of the many books that is going to hit over $100,000. This book also is, the people that are talking about it, even the Heritage Auction said some of these books on this are the most pristine version of these books they've ever seen. And I know they're trying to sell it to buyers, but the idea, you know what I mean, of a 74, if they do once a month, if they were, you know, and this is almost 50 years old, and it still looks like it came off of a newsstand shelf at 9.2. That is out of this world. And then another one, just the more for a because I see this as interesting, that they have the Promise Collection also has Detective Comics 140 at a 9.6 grade. And Detective Comics 140 is the first appearance of the Riddler. And it's the first one that actually has the Riddler on the cover. And apparently, like, you know, people, enthusiasts say that is big back then, because, like, the Riddler being on a cover is huge. Like, even like the Joker was never on a cover until way later, and he was already recognized, because, like, the Joker was in issue 1 and all that stuff. So it's the idea of, and then let me get the kind of the perspective to hold on. All right, here's the perspective. A 7.5 version of this Detective Comics 140 with the Riddler on it sold in the same auction house, so Heritage Auctions, this year in April for $47,800. A 7.5. And the people that are the enthusiasts, the ones who actually are Golden Age comic people, are they don't know where the ceiling is for these prices. I just think it's crazy, and I'm probably gonna figure it out before, of course, 2 days from now. I'm gonna put a link in so you can understand. This auction is gonna be, you can watch it online just to be part of it. If you just wanted something to talk, or I know E3 is gonna be around the corner, but the idea of this is some true history of seeing some comics at almost a quality like you're back in time. That's the more part of it that sounds so interesting. What is it? They also have like USA Comics 14 at a 9.6. Submariner comic at number, and but yeah, I don't know. I think this is a pretty amazing one. Offshoot one that I'll talk about right now is there is one from like the Fox Comics company called Phantom Lady 17. The Promise Collection has it at 9.6. It did get the grade of pink pages, but everyone in the part of the community said that pink pages is very common in Fox Comics, so that's not like a turnover, because here's the perspective. This Phantom Lady issue had a 9.4 version of the same comic sold in 2019 for $127,000. So again, I don't know where the ceiling is for a 0.2 more, because obviously that just means more better quality, more better this. And it's just very, very crazy. And I want to be able to see some of these like offshoot things, like All American Comics. Like I was just more like, this one will have a 9.6 version of All American Comics. I think it was 16. The first appearance of Solomon Grundy. It's not the creme de la creme. Apparently there's been a 9.8 through the church pedigree, but collection. But the idea of a 9.6, the people I listened to, they said a 7.5 sold for like 33,000. So the idea of this will be a 9.8 is such off the Richter scale of knowing. I just wanted to share it. I think it is great. I think you can't. Comic books are definitely American Pie, baseball, fucking American stuff. I know there's been funny books everywhere, but the idea of the way that the comic industry is now, it's all American. I think it's just crazy to hear, like, for all shitty history of America, like, there's still some shiny moments, like with comic books. I think it's really cool to hear. And even with like the Robert and Junie story, which I didn't make it up, it was just, they just renamed the names. I think it's a really cool moment to hear about Memorial Day, because obviously they were in the Korean War and stuff. But again, thank you guys for listening, and just more happy to say it because I wanted to talk about it, because also I think this would be better so I can have a quote-unquote shorter, don't have to stretch it out longer than I had to, convo. Again, thank you for RAE Comics to come on the show, and thanks everybody who's ever been on the show. But yeah, again, please read your descriptions of the show, of my show. I put links in there for everything. Links for people to follow, comic books to go buy. But yeah, go, hopefully have a good time, and you'll see this, and you'll probably see me tweet. If you follow at MikeFowler93, you'll see me tweet on June 17th and the 19th about this auction, because I think it's going to be huge. I'm probably going to watch it. It's through Heritage Auction if you don't see me put it in the description. But yeah, but that's me. And then you guys be good to each other, and I'll catch you next week. Peace.